Priscilla, you guys just wrapped up the second season of You, Me, Her on Audience Network. Tell us a little bit about going into the second season. What was it like for you guys?
Well, the second season is always, you have more of a feeling of family, and everyone kind of knows what they're doing a little bit more. First season of a show, it's kind of chaotic, and everyone's trying to find their place in the tone and everything. So going into second season was exciting. We had a new director. So really it was just kind of getting re-established is what it was really like.
Well, people are still discovering the show, so tell us a little bit about the basic plot of it and about your character, Izzy.
You cut out there a little bit.
Oh, I said just give us a little information about the show and about your character.
Right. So the show is about, well, first season you meet Jack and Emma, and they're a married couple. They're kind of in a rut, and Jack, at the very poor advice of his brother, hires an escort just to kind of get his mojo back. I happen to be the escort. But Izzy isn't, she's not a very good escort. She's doing it for money. She kind of got coerced into doing it just to make a little bit of extra money for school. And so she ends up having this meeting with Jack, and they really get to know each other, and Jack ends up kind of falling for her. He goes home, tells his wife. Emma gets upset, hires me behind his back. She falls for me, and now we're kind of in this dynamic where they don't know what to do, and I'm sort of the unicorn where I'm coming in and kind of flip their world upside down. So they decide amongst themselves that they're going to date me separately, that they're going to have dates with me and see what they're going to what's going to happen from there, because they've realized that having me in their life kind of has brought the light back in. So in season one, we follow them through that journey of what happens when there's a third person in this dynamic. And the great thing about the show is, I think there's a misconception when you see the trailer, or you see the poster, that it could be perhaps gratuitous or sort of a fantasy, like one man, two women. But John was very courageous. John Scott Shepherd, who wrote our show, he tried to flip the story there and make it more based in reality, where it's you really see and feel the just what it's like to have this stranger in your relationship, and what that does to you and your confidence and your relationship with your partner. So season one was really about that. And at the end of season one, they decide as a married couple that it just can't continue. Like, where does Izzy fit in? And so Izzy decides to go back home to Colorado, because she's just kind of blew up her life and doesn't really know where to go from there. So they come get her from the airport, and that's how season one ends. So season two, we open, there's no time cut, it's directly there. And we now are shifting the dynamic. So Izzy's now moved in with Jack and Emma. And what does that look like? So the season two is really about what happens now that we're all together. Is it going to work? How is that going to work? And specifically for my character, it was exciting. It's always exciting as an actor to have a character that has a really, really hard shift in their storyline. And in the first season, she, subconsciously really enjoyed the dynamic, because she could come in and out and there was no commitment involved. Whereas now she's really committing to these three people, and they're sort of off, very confused in what's happening inside of them. And so she's now taken on this caretaker role, and she's trying to bring them back together and make them remember why they decided to do this in the first place. So that was a very long, drawn-out answer, but I hope that answers some questions.
No, you were great. The more long and drawn out, the better.
Yeah.
So I guess when you first came aboard this, what were some of the qualities about Izzy that stuck out to you as you were trying to figure out who the character was?
That's a great question, because I was drawn to her, and I wasn't really sure why. And it took me a couple of reads of the script to finally understand why I loved her. She's super open, and she says yes to things and then kind of figures them out later. And that's very different than who I am as a person. And I really admired her bravery, just to go with, because I think that often when there's something unusual that's perked your interest, you usually go back and forth and you're like, I don't know, should I do this? And she's just like, yes, like this is how I'm feeling and I'm going to go forward. And I really admired that about her. And I really loved the script. Like I said, how it goes away from the male gaze of having it be one man and two women. Like I really think that John flipped that on its head. So that was exciting for me, that we see kind of this really intense connection between Izzy and Emma, and Jack sometimes feels like he's left out. And I really liked that dynamic. And I also loved Izzy's relationship with Nina. They have this really unusual sisterhood that you don't really see in female friendships. Sometimes female friendships are portrayed in not a realistic way, and I think that this friendship really shows how friendship can really morph into sisterhood.
Well, the show explores polyamorous relationships in a really interesting way, like you said. I wonder, and I'm trying to think of a tasteful way to ask this, but how did you, I guess, find your way into that world, if that makes any sense? I mean, was there research that you did, or? Yeah,
of course. I think it was more so in the second season that I mean, I obviously always do research for my roles, but I think that in the first season, they're not, as characters, they're really not sure. They're not in a box yet. You know, they have feelings for each other, and they're not really sure what that means. And I don't think that Jack and Emma are, if they were in real life, know what polyamory is, right? So I think that they just have fallen into this, whereas Izzy is the one who kind of understands it because she's a millennial, and she understands all the different alternative relationships that we're now exploring now. But yeah, for me, I'm someone who is a firm believer of like love is fluid, and I don't think it has to do with sex. I think it's about connection, and that's why I really love the show, is because that's what it focuses on. It's, yes, there's sex in the show, but it's not gratuitous, and that's not what carries the show. What carries the show is the relationships between them and the connections between them. So really, it was easy. It was easy for me in the script, and also Greg and Rachel are incredible actors, and they're so easy to connect to. And in our first season, the whole season was directed by Nisha Ganatra, who's an incredible director and person. And we were blessed to have I think it was a total of 5 days of rehearsal, where we didn't even look at the script. We just really went into old school acting techniques, connection techniques. So when we got to camera, we had already spent that time finding the connection with each other. So it was really a combination of everything: research, script, people. Whereas, you know, in the second season, I think we're going more into the polyamorous community in terms of where we're at. And I'm hoping that going forward, we'll explore that more.
Well, what were some of the highlights of this past season in terms of episodes for Izzy?
Well, in season 2, she has to meet Emma's parents. And they're trying to figure out how they're going to introduce her to their parents. Like, are they going to be honest? Are they going to be, and there's obviously some hilarious comedy in there where they've made up this lie on how to include her. And that was really fun to shoot, because, you know, you've got these two very wholesome, you know, people who drive around the country with a RV, coming to visit their daughter, and they had no idea what was going to come up. Yeah, and I think just as a whole, Izzy's arc in this season was really fun for me to play. she comes up against these feelings of, before it was really easy, and now it's difficult. Now she's having to bring this married couple back together. And that was really fun for me as an actor to figure out how, you know, the nuances of how to do that. And in turn, like, she's growing in this season. And so how do I, as an actor, do that and hopefully do it right? Yeah, and I think other highlights in this season, my favorite aspect of the season is that we explore what their relationship, so Izzy, Jack, and Izzy's relationship, how that affects those around them. So Carmen and Dave sort of have this midlife crisis or quarter life crisis where they're looking at each other like, we're married, we have kids, like, are we boring? You know, and how does it affect everyone around them? And also I come up against some stuff with Nina. So Nina's always kind of been there for Izzy through all of her crazy choices, and Nina's going through some stuff herself this season, and how does that dynamic shift for the two of them in terms of being a friendship? Because I think that Izzy was sort of selfish in that everything was really about her, and this season Nina really needs her, and that was exciting to figure that out. So there was just a lot of shifts in dynamics this season.
And working with John Scott Shepherd, your creator and executive producer, what is that collaboration like for you guys?
It's a collaboration. I mean, last season before we shot, we sat down with Sarah St. Ange, who directed our second season, and Greg, Rachel, and myself, and we just went through all of our scenes. And John, he cares about what we think, and at this point we know our characters really well, so our input is important to him. So he's always, you know, he's up for hearing what we have to say and our thoughts, and if we have ideas for changes or other scenes, like he's a collaborative guy. So yeah.
The show is set in Portland, Oregon, and you guys shoot some stuff there. What does that location add for the show?
Well, we shoot our exteriors in Portland. So our second team goes out there to do that. We shoot everything in Vancouver. Because Vancouver is very similar environmentally, like Portland. But John always makes a joke that he has like a weird fantasy crush on Portland, because it's just a very forward-thinking place. You know, there's just their motto is like, keep Portland weird, which I love. And so I think it just really, it suits our show. It suits our show that our main characters live in Portland, but now they're in the suburbs, and what does that look like? Because when you live in the city, you see everything. Everything is kind of open and out there, but when you're in the suburbs, what does that look like?
Right. And you guys, have you started working on season 3 yet?
No, we go back this summer.
Well, I look forward to seeing more of it. Priscilla, thank you so much, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
Bye.